guys. Thank you for joining us at All the Answers podcast, where we answer all your questions through the Akashic Records. Additionally, our sound quality is not excellent in some of these first few episodes because we were pulled away from our studio when Corona happened. So the longer you stick around episodes 8 and 9, things will be in order and sound will be amazing. So we hope you stick around. Enjoy.
Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions they asking. You find them inside you, reciting the records. Akashic, we laughing, we drafting the passion through fabric. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Conscious is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, fascinating. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers, what? All the answers. What were you asking for? All of the answers, say what? All of the answers, yeah.
Welcome. So, Molly, thank you so much for being here. What a treat to have you.
I think we're this is how we start, by the way. We just start talking. There's no official beginning to our show.
All right. So we're talking.
That's right. So, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions now, Molly, just to give our listeners and myself some context for who you are. One thing we know is that you birthed and parented Cassidy, Jamal Jackson, Malcolm, Jamal Warner Brown. And we're all very happy that you did that. Thank you for that choice.
Good one. One of my better.
Second only to my brother, apparently. But, you know.
Well, I did pretty well the first time around, so I figured we might as well try again.
That's right. I'm the second one.
You're the second one, the widow baby.
The widow baby.
That's nice for you. So, Molly, can you tell us a little bit about, I know you do some work called I believe it's called The Work That Reconnects. Is that correct?
That's right.
Will you tell us about what it is, how it works, how you were trained? Give us a little bit of teaching in what that work is. Let's promote you.
All right. I first encountered it when it wasn't even called The Work That Reconnects yet. At that time, it was called Disparate Empowerment Work. And a woman named Joanna Macy, who has since become my colleague, friend, mentor, teacher, beloved, elder, etc. She had developed this along with a number of her colleagues because she became aware of the fact that people were feeling a lot of pain about what was going on in the world and in the environment, and were stuffing it because there wasn't any place for that to be expressed. And so she started realizing that if people were to share their pain and talk about it and cry and do whatever they needed to, but in community, that's a very important aspect of it, that this was in fact empowering. They would find their way to their calling, to how they needed to respond. And rather than getting, quote, stuck in the pain, which is what most people seem to be afraid of, it was quite the opposite. So I met her in 1987, but I didn't really start working with her until 1990. I went to a workshop she was giving, which was called Nuclear Guardianship. And I grew up in Los Alamos, as did Cassidy, and I felt a kind of karmic connection to what was happening.
For those who don't know, Los Alamos, New Mexico, home of the atomic bomb, the Manhattan Project, a very specific community in the midst of some very sacred land.
Right.
Which, interestingly enough, my father lives there today.
You're kidding.
I kid not.
I'll be darned.
Not in Los Alamos, in Albuquerque, right?
Correct. Not Los Alamos. He lives in Albuquerque, but his lab, he runs a lab called the Loveless Research Institute, and they have an actual spot, a lab, a center in Los Alamos. So he's there all the time, and I get to hear about it all the time.
Right, right.
So we're like a little weird podcast community of that town is what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So how does the work work, Molly? Like, how does it work? What's the process?
Well, the process is it's very much something you do in a workshop or in a group. You could do a little bit by yourself, but the whole idea is that we're in this together and we need to share our feelings and our pain and so forth. But the way it's evolved now is we call a spiral of the work. And the first stage of the spiral, if you will, is gratitude. So we begin a workshop or whatever, with people talking about what they're grateful for. And they don't necessarily use those words. It could be what makes my heart sing, what I love about life, just there's different ways of introducing that and sharing that. And it's wonderful because we all open up. We just blossom when we start talking about what we love. And then that moves us into honoring our pain for the world, the second stage or phase, because as our hearts open and what we love, we also grieve. So this is the opportunity for people to really talk about and cry and rage or whatever else they need to do, because it's not just grief. It's also anger. It's also fear. It's also numbness, all the kinds of feelings that people are probably having even more so today because of the pandemic. And then that enables us to see with new eyes. So we start really seeing how interconnected we are, and we start seeing the world through a whole different perspective.
So one thing that's really interesting, sorry to cut you off just briefly, Molly, just to relate to what you're saying, that I identify with just for some context sharing, is that, I spent 15 years sitting in 12-step rooms, and what you're describing to me is very similar to what I experience in the sharing circles of a 12-step context, where people are sharing, here's how I'm suffering and here's where I'm at, and here's how I'm applying these spiritual tools, these emotional tools to my process. And then there's this communal, people in 12-step always talk about the sort of magic that happens in the circle just by being heard and seen. As we know, I have a spiritual teacher who says human beings experience love by feeling seen and heard, period. Mm-hmm. Seen, heard, and understood, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, just like the miracle of 12-step hits me over and over again, that like this information was channeled, like the 12 steps themselves, or received or written down or whatever words you like. And then the context and the way of the sharing, mm-hmm. and just any therapeutic healing circle, like so many healing circles are shaped like what you're describing, right? Mm-hmm. It's just very amazing to me that different human beings come from their different perspectives, and we come up with this simple, similar, communal teachings and processes that allow for the thing everyone's looking for. And yet there are so many humans still so lost and not sure how to process and not sure where to go and not sure where to put their pain.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, we say there's no difference really between quote, personal pain, end quote, and pain for the world. Because if people are suffering, it's often because there's something amiss in the larger social circle that is creating a circumstances for that personal pain.
That's cool. Yeah.
So it's all part of the same thing.
I agree 100%. Did you find that, this is a little bit of a personal question, and if you'd rather not answer it, I understand, but how did you apply these principles or this sort of context, this way of functioning, this way of processing to your parenting process with your kids?
By the time I encountered the work that reconnects, my kids were long grown. But before that, I was involved in something called psychosynthesis, which is a spiritual psychology or transpersonal psychology that says, how can you have a complete psychology that ignores the spiritual dimension? Tries not to define it, because each person's spiritual experience is different, but at least says, hey, it's there. Let's work with it. And I can remember a very specific time, Cass, I don't know if you'll remember this. We were driving in a car in Berkeley, and you said to me, Mom, you're like all these different people, all in one person. This isn't an exact quote, obviously, but it's something to that effect. And it was like, that was psychosynthesis, the whole idea that we have all these different parts of ourselves and different subpersonalities is what we call them. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely brought that into my parenting, that whole perspective. Also, I studied with Roberto Assagioli. Jim and I both did, my husband, Jim, Cassidy's father, when Cassidy and Greg were quite small children. And we talked with him. He was this amazing spiritual teacher, psychologist and spiritual teacher. We talked with him about our parenting, and he said that we should treat our children like guests, like they're not ours. They're not our possessions. They're guests that we have in our home. And that doesn't mean that they can just do anything they damn well please. Obviously, there's going to be certain boundaries, but there is for a guest too.
Right.
You have a guest in your home, you say, here's the bathroom and here's your towel. And,
Yeah.
you set up certain procedures. Anyway, that definitely affected, I think, how we parented.
Incredibly beautiful to hear. Yeah. So everything I've ever read or studied, or any teacher I've ever worked with who talks about, I've done a lot of self-reparenting and a lot of therapeutic processes to learn about how to self-reparent essentially and reparent in community and so on and so forth. And the thing that is always said is number one, what all the experts say is you've got to make a child feel like a whole person who has their own point of view, who is being honored, acknowledged, seen, and heard, because then the self-esteem grows well. And then they feel like, oh, I exist as an autonomous individual. And these other separate humans that are separate from me care about me enough to acknowledge my separateness while holding space for healthy, shared relational intimacy. And so it's so nice to hear. Partly, I ask you for two reasons. One, it's just lovely to meet Cassidy's mom and talk about Cassidy with Cassidy's mom, because I know Cassidy a long time. But also because, for our listeners, like so much of what I'm up to here, or what we're about in alignment here, is making all of this practical and actionable for people listening. And so I know that so many people listening have kids. And when we look at these concepts, sometimes people get a little ungrounded with their spirituality. Sometimes, almost all the time, people get ungrounded with their spirituality. And then they don't know how to apply healing, integration, communal connection to their parenting and to their kids and to their life with their kids. And so it just feels great to have someone who, you've been doing your own conscious work so long, and you raised at least one pretty great kid. I can't speak to the other one. I really can't.
He's pretty great too.
It's pretty great.
I believe it.
He is one of the kindest people you have ever met in your life.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And patient.
Ugh.
He's the one with two kids, one of whom was challenging in her younger years. And his patience with her was just always like, I would be strangling. I would be wanting to strangle her. And he would be like, that's okay. I know he wasn't a pushover.
Yeah.
But he never lost it, at least that I ever saw. He probably did somewhere. I wasn't watching.
We are humans with some faults.
Yes. He ate
Of course.
perfect. Yes.
Yeah. And so for you, Molly, I'm curious, what has been, I don't know, coming from the perspective you're coming from, like what's been useful for you about these conversations we're having? Like what brings you here today from your point of view? What are you interested in about what we're up to here? What resonates?
Yeah, the podcasts I've listened to, and I haven't listened to all of them, but I've listened to, I don't know, probably 4 or 5. It just, it's such, I love your irreverence for one thing. And I've always had a very strong interest in the spiritual dimension, but I've always wanted it to be really grounded. And it's like my God is Gaia rather than some disconnected something up there in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the web of life is just so miraculous to me.
Mm.
I feel like when I go deeply inside and connect with my inner voice, or whatever you want to call it, that is the web of life, or Gaia, that I am tuning into. It's this sort of paradox of going deep within puts me in connection with everything. It's like I said, it's a paradox. I've loved your irreverence. I love your the meditation you use when you start to open the records of the roots down into the ground and all that. That's just, that's where it's at for me. And I don't know, I've been impressed with, I don't know if I've learned anything brand new, but I've had a lot of affirmations and reminders of, oh, yes, that's right. And I'm really intrigued with the fact we're doing this today, because I'm starting this evening, a 5-week online Work That Reconnects course. Like 25 people signed up. It's full, incidentally. So
screw you, listeners. Screw you.
Look for another one.
We'll take a waiting list. How about that?
There you go.
Anyway,
I'm taking it also. This is, in 50 years, I have never actually directly accessed the official work of my genius mother. Like, haven't done the workshops or like I've browsed her books, but never read them cover to cover. Like, I've never really done the Molly Brown experience. I know this is you and another person, but I'm very excited to finally, after 50 years, involve myself directly rather than just by osmosis with the genius work of Molly Brown. MollyYoungBrown.com.
you know I'm delighted to have you and Rami in the class. So that's just been great. Anyway, starting that tonight, and I felt like, gee, maybe I shouldn't come on the podcast today because, I need to get ready and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, who knows? Maybe this will actually set me up for whatever happens tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said a moment ago made me think of something important I've been wanting to share with the listeners too, is that I'll speak to this point that you touched on through talking about a specific interaction I had yesterday with a client. So I had a healing client who I hadn't worked with in probably 5 or 7 years, back when I was doing a different kind of spiritual energetic healing work. And we had a session, and what I can say is that it was a man, and his spiritual alignment could not be more different energetically than mine. In other words, when I open somebody's records, I'm immediately given this like sort of visceral, sensorial experience of their spiritual alignment. And for a few minutes while he was talking and I'm tapping in and he's talking and I'm tapping in, I'm thinking, there's nothing happening here. Is this guy? So I start to ask questions. Is he dead? Is he blocked from spirit? Because that's common. Is he la la la? And then finally, as like I know to let time go by and to let my energy field really relax into somebody else's alignment, it was revealed to me that he's the most earthbound spirit I've yet worked with. He is like an earth guy. And as we went through the session, every single thing about how a healing would normally go in my experience was reversed. Everything. Usually it's like light is shooting in from the top and it's coming down and it's healing things and it's pulling it out and it's very dramatic and it's wonderful. And then they feel peaceful and quiet and it's very beautiful. And then more light comes in and fills those places. And then there's an integration time where the spirit and the emotions are getting knitted back together. And it's different for each person, but there's a kind of similarity sort of in the way that my field receives this, whatever this work is. This guy was so different. And I know this and I experience this regularly, but it was so refreshing to see. I had to move like half as fast as I usually move. I had to really listen in a different way. And by the end, it was like the way Gaia, as you say, I kept referring to the soul of Gaia. I like to call it Sophia Gaia when I'm talking about the soul of Earth or whatever. That's just language I got from wherever I got it. Was oozing. They kept giving me the word ooze. It would ooze up from the earth and ooze into his pores. And it was like a gelatinous ooze filling him. I have never felt spirit like that before. Now, to be clear, I had felt a kind of ooze in the past that was not healthy, or it was like a toxic ooze. There's a particular, here, I'll say a challenging thing because that's how I roll. There's a particular kind of medicine some people are using right now. It's this thing, I don't remember the name of it, but it's frog venom. People get poisoned by frogs. Yeah, because there are poisonous frogs, and it makes you hallucinate, and then people realize things or have spiritual experiences, right? Like in the same way that if you got botulism and tripped out for a while in your bed and threw up a lot, you might realize some shit. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily the highest spiritual freaking path to take. Anyway, all of this is to say, I had a few people show up in my practice in a row who had been doing this frog medicine thing. And there was a realm of consciousness. This is the trippiest shit. These frog people. I would tap into their thing and their alignment. I'm just with them and their soul and their soul's alignment with source. And I'm like, I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm in like the underground part of a bog. I'm like under a bog. Like I'm in like this thick, dense, oozing, green, mossy, scary, dark. And then there's like thickness. And then it's oozing up into their spirit. And then their spirit is getting weighted down and made black and heavy. And there were like things that would shoot out from to scare you and poke you in the eye. And I was like, this is not good. And then I would spend the entire session with those people, like clearing that out of their field so they could connect to something that was like kind of light and nourishing and beautiful and felt like wind or whatever. This is not the kind of ooze I'm talking about. This guy had an ooze that was like, it was meant to be. It was like a Gaia sort of very earthy thing. And it was very beautiful. But I did ask God after those 3 frog people, I said, please don't send me any more frog people unless they want to transmute this energy, because they got mad. They're like, oh, you're taking my thing away. And I was like, all I can tell you is that as a person aligned to what I call light, I'm just one lady. I think I'm tapped into God. I could be crazy and wrong. Don't listen to me just because I said so. I'm just a freaking lady. But from what I know and my alignment, the thing you're doing is actually pulling you down into a realm that changes stuff and makes you feel things, but you're going to have a much quicker, easier ride if you get on something that's not like a freaking underground bog of pain and terror. How about that as an idea? So then they stopped coming and there were no more frog people. But yesterday's guy was just like an amazing earth guy, and it was incredible to get to work with his energy field. Just bouncing off of what you said about just different people's connection. You know, you said we're not going to try to freaking define it because everybody's different. I have a class I teach called Claim Your Key to Divine Knowing, which is basically a class where I just open each students' records and go, hey, God, how is this person best suited to practice spiritually? And the shit that happens in that class continually blows my mind. I get to hear the divine say the weirdest shit to people. And people go, how did you know that I like to wear a red t-shirt that has a horse on it? And I'm going like, I'm channeling like, tell her about the red horse. And they're like, that's what I sleep in every night. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. You know, and it's like, it turns out that the shirt they're sleeping in is from a Navajo tribe that they didn't know it was from a Navajo tribe, but now they gotta do Navajo shit. And they're like, I always wondered why I love that shirt. And they're sobbing. It's amazing. I'll stop talking after this, but I had one I have to tell you guys. It's a great story. I had a student, it is a horse example where she always comes to mind. I'm asking the questions like, what is her da-da-da? And I'm saying, and my eyes are closed and she's in the room and I'm going, there's something about this race horse. There's a racing horse. I don't know. And then she starts crying. She goes, yeah, I know that. I know the horse. I worship the horse totem. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then I'm like, okay, now you have a stick in your hand and you're beating the ground. You're going like whap, whap with this stick and you're running around a fire. Now I'm certain as I say that to her, she's going to be like, you're a maniac. And I don't know what's happening. And she goes, I come from a tribe of people who we do the fire dance. And I abandoned the fire dance years ago. Anyway, every piece of information I kept getting for her was deeply resonant. And she's all on that path now and blah, 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 blah. But this is the entertainment aspect of the wildness for me of the fact that everybody's path is different and everybody's meant to find what works for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm wondering, I have one more question for you, and then I'd love to see if you have a question for the records since we're doing that on this podcast. Before I ask you my question, do you think you have a question for the record keepers?
I might. I've been thinking about it and sort of letting something form, and maybe when the time comes, something will pop out of my mouth.
Okay, great. And if not, we'll let them let things pop out of my mouth on your behalf, which I'm sure will occur.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, with your very grounded, integrated, going within yourself to know the all that is, which I fully support and believe and agree with you and all of that. Can you tell us maybe a story of like, what's your most interesting or crazy or dynamic spiritual, maybe transcendent story that you've experienced? Like, what's some kind of otherworldly or multidimensional or just like deep within yourself spiritual experience you've had, if you've had anything like that?
Oh, lots. I have had some amazing dreams in the distant past. Nothing very recent, but I had an experience like 3 days ago. That I can share with you. Seems really relevant. I was reading this book in which this woman's talking about standing on a riverbank to pray, and I thought, I need to do that again. I used to pray to the 4 directions, the 6 directions, actually, including the sky and the ground and the earth. And I've gotten out of that habit. So I decided to get back in that habit. So I've been going out of the house, and the first time I did it, and going around the yard, around the house, so that I can actually stand with a clear view off in each direction. So I'm not like looking at the side of the house or something. I'm seeing the mountains, or I'm seeing, whatever. So anyway, when I came to the south, because I start with the east and then I go to the south, and to me, the South is associated with curiosity and childhood and kind of like growth and emergence and a certain kind of playfulness. And I've been working with the concept of mutual co-arising or dependent co-arising. It's a Buddhist concept, and it's something that Joanna Macy teaches. And so it's very connected to the work that reconnects, that it isn't a cause-effect situation. It's things arising together and kind of causing each other, but it's not linear causality. And I really got, if that's the case, which I believe, could have cognitively believed to be the case, but I was getting it on a more level of insight, that all our predictions about what's going to happen, and the world's going to come to an end, or climate change, or species extinction, or near-term extinction of humans, or not. It's all, we don't know, because everything is arising and changing all the time. And it's like, yes, that is my faith, if you will, or that's where I can put my faith, is into the mystery of mutual co-arising. And so what I do affects the larger world, and the larger world affects what I do, and somehow just really staying open to that mystery. And that's where the curiosity comes in of the South is. So that's what happened just 3 days ago.
That's stunning and beautiful, and I deeply relate to it. Here's how I'll relate to that. I have this thing where every time, there's a lot these days of this, like, if you're a soulpreneur, like you're an entrepreneur doing soul work, or you're a young woman doing on the internet teaching whatever, there's all these like marketing techniques. There's all these like, get a sales funnel. Exactly. She's making a puke face, with which I have to concur. Now, part of why none of that works for me is energetically I ask, and it's like, no, Katie, that's not how you operate. You function within the realm of the mystery, and the people who need you find you, and namaste, end of conversation. There's no funnel to be built. There's no fucking sales tactic. I tell people things, they come or they don't. And the next level of that, with which I'm hearing you speak to, is I will think in my mind, oh, I did that healing class called Learn How to Be a Chicken, or whatever it was. And my mind will say, we should do Learn How to Be a Chicken again. And when I feel into it in my feeling sense down at the pit of my stomach, which connects, as you're talking about, to the all that is, it's like a dead energy. It's like, nah. I'm like, but 20 people came to that. And it's like, nah. And so I wait and I listen for a moment of organic inspiration. And for years, Molly, I was hearing this guidance. The guidance was saying to me, don't plan ahead. Be in this moment so deeply, like we do with improv, so deeply that you trust that something will arise. You will be inspired to create a class again. You will make money again. You won't die and be destitute. And you, Katie, will not ever be able to just formulaically replicate stuff, because that is not in the moment. That is like antithetical to being aligned with the divine feminine and being in flow. Flow necessitates that we be right here with our feelings right now. So right now, for example, I have 2 concurrent writing classes going on, whereas my mind was like, yeah, but we should also have a healing class going on. And my being is like, nah, there's no energy on it. To speak to your point, it's sort of like, God or the universe or the earth or the all that is like, right now we need you doing this. And I can't know what it wants me to be doing right now if I've already made a plan that I think matters more than what I'm hearing in the moment, right?
I'm cheering. Strategic planning drives me up the kazoo. How can we, with our little intellectual minds,
Yes.
no, I mean, yeah, if I have an inspiration to do a certain kind of class, then I'm going to use that mind to figure out, okay, I'll do it this way or I'll do it that way. And I'll, the date's a good date and, all that sort of stuff.
That's it.
But the inspiration, the vision, the prompting, the calling has to come from somewhere else. It can't be
100%.
a strategic plan.
If it comes from the mind, I find, I think this is, we're vibing here, is that if it comes from the mind, it's necessarily a limitation. It's necessarily got illusion, because the mind is not the organ through which this direct Gnostic union with source speaks. That's not the organ it talks through. It talks through the being, the heart, the soul, the spirit. And the mind is looking, one of my teachers used to say, the mind's job and what it's good at, it's like a computer, is to separate things, organize, separate, split, separate. The heart, the body, the soul, the being is designed to unify, to connect, the work that reconnects, right? So why would we make a choice about what we're trying to build for the world from the machine that separates?
Yeah.
Right? The machine that separates should be, like you said, used to make the spreadsheet that makes organization possible for the work that this machine.
And thank goodness we have it. It would be really hard to manifest those visions without that nice little worker bee to, kind of figure out the mechanics. There's a quotation by Gregory Bateson, and I wish I had it memorized, but I'm going to give it to you as much as I can remember. Mere purposive rationality, apart from art, dreams, and the like, is necessarily, I think it's like pathogenic, or it might be a word that is like causing death. I can't quite think of the right word, because the human mind there are these huge causal loops. This is my paraphrase now. And our human mind is only able to perceive a short arc of that causal loop.
That's right.
So we can't perceive the actual full true interconnectedness of everything, the system. We can't perceive it. It's too grand and complex, but we can perceive it on a spiritual level, perhaps, if we can tune into that. But the mind can't go, I understand the complex web and how to execute plan within web for maximum gain.
The unconscious can, or can understand more of it, maybe not the whole ball of wax, but more of it. Because, I've lived 78 years, my God. And, I've had a lot of experience, and it's all stored there somewhere to draw on. And it's coming, it's like the mycelia help trees communicate with each other. Now, if the mycelia is sending messages underground between different trees with chemicals, how much information is coming to us all the time that we don't even know about, because we can't comprehend it with our intellectual conscious minds?
That's it.
But we can draw on that for guidance, quote unquote. And, when you go inside and you say, and your being says, yeah, to me, that's what you're connecting with. That's
right.
That reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's concept in Blink, which I've always really loved. And that is, he was sort of demystifying the concept of intuition. He was making it, in a sense, scientific, just so so certain people could trust it more. But the idea that intuition is literally your brain or your mind, maybe we call it mind instead of brain. But the system is a supercomputer, and it has perceived billions and billions of pieces of information. We, with our conscious mind, the one that's trying to make that stupid plan when God laughs, can only see a billionth fraction of all the information that this brain is comprehending. So intuition can be looked at as the response to so if I see a person and I don't trust them, it's probably because I can see, the way they're looking at me, the eye twitches, body language, a billion pieces of information that I can't consciously comprehend, but my soul, my spirit, my whole person does have that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And so the brain is the brain. If we look at the brain as part of the whole system instead of its own little worker that's at the top and separate, it's a very useful tool, but only if we trust it to be connected to the whole soul.
And your example is a good one in the sense that you could also be interacting, not trusting that person because he reminds you of someone who did you some harm in the past.
Right.
And this person is actually totally fine.
Right. You still have to check it.
So that's why the self-awareness comes into play, the checking it. There's like, what is this about? And having some level of self-awareness where you can make where you can discern the difference between, say, a prejudice or bias and intuition.
I mean, have you ever touched into, Katie, I'm asking you, like a feeling or what felt like an internal impulse or but that you feel like you might have been, I don't know, for lack of a better word, fooled by?
Sure. I mean, it's exactly what your mom is talking about, where it happens for me most is with dating.
We talked about this a couple episodes ago, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, is that like, it's very easy for me I have a process that I take myself through now because of that, where I'll go, ooh, he said a sentence, whoever the man is in front of me. I feel terrified. Now, if I feel terrified, either he's terrifying and I gotta go bye-bye, or some old thing is coming up in me. He's triggered. I've been triggered. Some old thing in me is coming up that feels terror, that is reminded of that by whatever words he said. So that's why it's so important. And I love what Molly, you're saying, is that for me, the next step is to then feel into that terror and go and have a dialogue with it and say, okay, so what is this? Is this mine? Is this from childhood? Is this from trauma? Is this, and then to take that through the process, what I call like, take it to the light, bring the consciousness of all that is to that and apply a deeper, more subtle spidey sense to that and check. That's how I sort of check myself. Also, I'll bounce it off of like the one or two humans on the earth I trust at this point, because so many people are so unaware of their own filters through which they're listening that you've got to really be cautious about who you choose to check things with, because really all anyone can ever do who's mirroring back is mirror back either that which you know or that which doesn't sit right. Either they say a thing and you go, or you say a thing and you go, that's what it is. Or they say a thing and you defend and avoid and resist. And once you know yourself well enough, you know if you're doing that.
Right. Self-awareness is so basic.
I know.
And there's so little of it.
It's so rare.
Amazing.
In the larger world.
I agree. I've been doing a healing class. It's a 10-week one. And when the record keepers told me to do it for 10 weeks, I usually do 6 or 7 weeks, I thought. And I said to them, like, that's a long time with one group of people. Are you sure? And they were very insistent, but I couldn't get a sense of why. So I had to surrender and go like, okay, I'm just going to trust because that's what we do here. All right. So I made it 10 weeks. Whoever came. Lo and behold. So the structure of the class was each class, I do a healing for the group, for the collective of the group. And then I teach a tool, a spiritual tool for them to have and apply to themselves and their lives. And then after that, they can ask questions and we do little mini healings within each class period. Well, around the 3rd or 4th class, the record keeper said, now you're going to teach them the 4th step in the 12-step programs, which by the way is wrong, and bad. And you're not supposed to teach the steps out of order. And you're not supposed to teach them out of the context of 12 steps. And you're not supposed to, and I don't give a flying fuck because I serve God, not people's minds. And so God was like, nah, you're going to teach the 4th step alone. And then by teaching them the 4th step, that's going to open all these 8,000 other questions. Well, turns out just to get people to understand the 4th step, which side note, the 4th step is the deep self-awareness one. It's the one where you know, but I'll say
moral inventory, right?
Yes. Searching fearless moral inventory where you break, but even better than that is it's very specific if used correctly. It shows the individual everything. It's very revealing and self-awareness building. Anyway, and it's very specific and there's a lot of details in it. And it takes time to teach a person how to use it well in a way that's going to actually serve them usefully. So anyway, 3 or 4 weeks later, we are still on that 4th step and people are just starting to get it. And I did that. Oh, you're saying my fear was under that. Oh, I was being entitled. People are clicking in, clickety, 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 nice and freaking slow, which is why the record keepers had me do a 10-week class, which is both a lesson in A, Katie, you have to be patient with people's process. B, nobody fucking knows how to do self-responsibility. C, sometimes you got to trust your guidance and not know the answer why and just trust, because D, everything will be revealed in time. Namaste. Thank you, God. Alhamdulillah. All is one. Mike.
Drop.
So how about we open the records and see what's there?
Okay.
You want to do that, or we don't have
Sure.
to?
No. I definitely do.
Okay.
I definitely do. Do you want to know my question?
No, I want to know your full legal name that's on your driver's license.
I have two legal names. On my driver's license, it's Molly Young Brown, but my birth certificate and my voting record is Martha Young Brown. I
The
use
record
Young.
keepers will not recognize Martha because she does not barely exist.
Yeah, they may not recognize Martha. I do not
They'll recognize all.
I do not identify with Martha. I identify with Molly.
Fantastic. All right.
And Young was my maiden name, and I use it as my middle name.
Okay. Off we go. So we'll just close our eyes when we're ready. We are moving energy already, as I'm sure you're aware. I'm very excited to get all up in you, Molly, because I'm very curious. Very curious to see what it's like in there. Okay, so we're going to close our eyes and just take a couple deep breaths into the low belly now, and we'll just feel down into the unahapili, as the Hawaiians say, or the dantian, as the Tai Chi people say, or the belly, as Americans say. Connecting to the seat of the self, as you are so already skilled with doing. We're going to feel into the bottoms of each foot. We're going to visualize a little window opening or a little foot chakra opening at the bottom of each foot, right at the center, middle, bottom of each foot. A space or a window or a tunnel opens, allowing the bottom of each foot to become an open field through which the soul of you can connect with the soul of the earth. And as that channel or that chakra or that window opens, we're going to see, imagine, visualize, allow there to be a complex root structure like tree roots that grows into the earth below our feet now, staying in touch with the feet, staying in touch with that chakra, staying in touch with the low belly as we breathe, allowing the complex root structure to grow from the bottom of each foot. 50 roots, off of each of which 50 more, and then 50 more and 50 more in every direction, down and down, miles and miles into the ground below. Amen. And as that process continues, we're going to see the pelvic floor beginning to expand and open as a grounding cord that is 1.5 feet wide, shoots to the center of the earth, from the base of the spine now, down to the center of the earth. We're going to allow that grounding cord to be at least 1.5 feet wide, nice and porous, so it can receive all of that juicy spiritual light from Gaia herself. Yes, we see that light now flowing up through that cord into our root chakra, filling it, nourishing it, feeding it. That light splits off into each hip socket, filling each quad, each glute, each hamstring. Allah, passing down through the upper leg into the knee of each leg, down into the shin and calf, down through the shin and calf, into the ankle, into each foot. Allah, flooding that open foot chakra. Allah, passing through it down into the complex root structure below each foot, connecting us even more fully, even more deeply to the center of the earth, to all the layers of the earth, to all the silt and the rock and the limestone and the soot, even the soot. Allah. And we're allowing that Allah, spiritual energy of Gaia, Sophia Gaia, flooding up and down and through, giving us a nice tripod grounding system. Okay. Allah. And they tell me we don't need to do the kite exercise because you're already so with yourself, Molly. There's no need. And so I'll open with the prayer now. Amen. As we feel into the low belly, by the power of the divine light within us all today, come, Holy Spirit, Spirit of light, Spirit of truth, for the highest good of all throughout time. Fill our hearts with divine love. As I humbly ask permission to open the divine portal to the highest realm of the Akashic Records for Molly Young Brown. Akashic beings of light, guide Molly Young Brown to the deepest truth of her being. Allah, Allah, Allah. Releasing any blocks and restrictions to her abundance and highest good. Allah, Lords of the Akashic Records, assist Molly Young Brown to fully embody her soul's light, to fulfill her soul's purposes, to heal any accumulated karma. Surround Molly Young Brown with the enlightenment and wisdom of her masters, teachers, and loved ones. Ameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad abduhu wa rasulullah. Clearly direct Molly Young Brown's perspective and actions to those that manifest her divine plan. And I'll just go quiet for one moment. Okay. Free of all resistance, judgment, and fear, we're now filled with divine love, and the records for Molly Young Brown are now open. Allah. And so I'm just asking now, God, the divine, Sophia Gaia, all that is, Mother, Father, creation itself, the fountain of light, align me with Molly Young Brown's body, being, soul, spirit, and her alignment with Source, that I may hear clearly for her on her soul's behalf, and in her soul's alignment with her Akashic Records and everything within and beyond them. And so if it's all right with you, Molly, I'd love to just give you a little bit of the information that comes first, and then we could just kind of go with whatever you'd like to go with.
Sounds good. Yep.
Okay, great.
That's fine. Yep.
So the first piece is interesting. They're like, you have, okay, was that this lifetime? Okay, so you've got at least one past life, several past lives, Catholicism, with Catholicism. And this lifetime you were like pretty committed to burning that structure down, and through the light of love, not through any kind of hate or any of that, but just sort of within your own energy field, you came in like done with the structures of we worship at the altar of whatever, which you already know. And then there were also is like is that this lifetime? Is that current? Is that past? It's current. Okay. And so something we have been showing Katie regularly is that every earthbound practice, teaching, lineage, etc., has in alignment with it a family, if you will, of light beings. In other words, there's usually a light language or a light alignment, light family, star body alignment with that practice. In other words, the Celtic people, for example, who dance around a fire of whatever they do, those people have a particular star system or light language structure that is aligned with that spiritual practice. And there is, in fact, a kind of, the words that they give are like, there is, in fact, a kind of woo-wooier extension arm to what you practice and do and are. Okay, there's like an extension arm that is not required. You don't have to like be all about that. And right this second, Molly, the light language arm of the practice you engage in, which is feel into self, connect with earth, Sophia Gaia, etc., the light beings in that lineage alignment with that practice are delivering to you the 5D, 5-dimensional, 8-dimensional, 13th dimensional, 26th dimensional, 53rd, 7th dimensional. I'm just listening. I don't know what I'm talking about now. Energies that are in alignment with your practice. And so it is that this work in this moment will in fact lighten and deepen that which you are already doing. You live in Holy Land. Allah, Shasta, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh boy. You live on Holy Land and near some very holy spots. I don't have any knowledge of this myself. They're just showing me a bunch of images now on the mountain, places to go. God. So just breathing into the low belly now, they're going to transmit some. This is, again, just the higher vibrational aspects, if you will, or arm of that which you already are, just for the sake of giving you even more joy, levity, bubbliness, sparkliness, effervescence. And they say transcendent bliss. Because why not? What else are you doing? They're like, you've done all this service for the people down there on the planet, connecting them to themselves and let them know and their feelings and the earth. And they're like, you've lived a long fucking life. How about you effervesce a little? Let's make you into a little cup of champagne for a minute. Allah. Allah. Gosh, this is a beautiful energy. Allah, 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 Allah. Allah, 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 excuse me. Allah, 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 Allah. And this is the spirit of Shasta itself now, the mountain. Allah, 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 the shaman that this mountain is. Allah, Allah, Allah. And the tribes that she speaks for. Allah, Allah, Allah. And continuing to feel into the low belly. Wow. There is a revealing of a way that even this deep rock-like, boulder-like connection you have to the seat of yourself and to the planet and to the mountain and to the rocks, even that rock, the rock of you, even that can become flecks of light, even more so than they are already. And in the same way that the people who use the plant medicines to see through time and space and to recognize the multidimensionality of the plant world, you know, people with ayahuasca and so forth, similarly, we deliver to you in this moment the light language, the light frequencies from your higher dimensional brothers and sisters that show you and reveal to you, Molly, the multidimensional transparency of, or we should say, the transparency and the infinite fact of, and truth and purity of the truth of the multidimensional nature of space and time. Is this making any sense so far?
Yes and no.
Okay, cool. What questions come up, if any?
No questions.
Okay, great. So this is in alignment too with your, is this her higher self? No, this is just the light lineage. Okay. So just like lining your soul up right now in an active way with everything we've already articulated, with the light frequencies that are in alignment with your earthbound practices. And why would we do this? To make you a glass of champagne. To let you effervesce. To bring transcendent bliss even to the rock. Even a rock doesn't have to take itself so seriously. Even a rock can transcend time and space. And so I'm just like very sitting in this alignment. It's very beautiful. It's very strong. It's like, how do I explain? If you could make lightning, metal and lightning, if you could combine metal and lightning and have that be your alignment from the root of everything up through the middle of you to the infinite beyond, That's what your alignment is like. Your essence, your spirit, the beings you're aligned with, they're like, pew! Like a laser. That's the energy. Like a laser. Like we worked with someone who was like a reed of grass, and we've worked with people who are like an ooze of love of earth, and we've worked with people who are the sun. For you, it's like a very strong single beam, laser beam of light. Pew! It makes that sound. And they're talking about something to do with Shasta again, and I'm just trying to discern what it is. Something about why you're there and your purpose there and your role with the mountain and the mountain's role with you and the Lumerians and all kinds of craziness. Do you have a sense of like, what is Shasta about for you? Why are you there?
It's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
When we first came, I used to go up the hill behind our house. I mean, usually drive because it's a ways to a place where I could see the peak of the mountain, because I can't see it from our house because there's hills between us. And so I would go up to where I could see it and just bask in the miracle of its presence. And again, there's not any real, it's not an idea, it's not a thought, it's
an energy.
It's a felt sense of
right.
I don't even experience the mountain as being either male or female. I experience it as being, well, both, I guess.
Yeah.
Having both male and female energies connected with it.
Yep.
Or emanating from it. Yeah.
Wow.
I've always loved mountains, and I love living in the Boulder Mountains where we live now, because not only do we have Mount Shasta behind us, but there's mountains to the west and south that are beautiful mountains in their own right. And I just love living in a bowl of mountains.
This is something I've not seen before, so I'm being educated here. They're showing me it's like you are a fleck of light that is meant to be merged with the bigger fleck of light known as Mount Shasta, which is to say you are that mountain.
That hits home.
Allah. And as that hits home, and as you acknowledge that, there is a completion process at work at present for you spiritually on your path. A completion process of unification with the all that is. Allah. This is what they speak of when we say, we give you access to seeing multidimensionally in the way that the plant medicine people do. We give you access now to understand yourself as a fleck of light, the mountain as a larger fleck of light, and the two of you as a flame, a unified field of energetic flame. I mean, oof. And so it is that the mountain itself would not be as bright of a, what's that called? Lightning rod for the people, for humanity, for the earth, for Sophia, actually, for Sophia, not the people, for the soul of the earth. The mountain would not be as much of a light transmission rod for Sophia Gaia were you not there, and were the other tribes members not there. Those of you who were, as they say, called to the mountain were literally magnetized to the mountain, like a magnet to a refrigerator. There was no choice. Now, there's this piece about the Lumerians I want to understand. What is this information about the Lumerians? Is there information for Molly about this? Is this just for my knowing? Is it just sort of interesting? There's like this little whisper in the background about the Lumerians. I don't really know much about them. I know that there are a lot of people who live on Shasta who are of that whole ilk and lineage. Okay, now we get it. Is this a Lumerian alignment? No. Okay. The Lumerians are there to support the light of the mountain? Yes. What does this have to do with Molly? Okay. So, you, Molly, are, let's say, you are like a flame that is a part of the fire. If the mountain were a fire and you are a flame within that mountain, or you're all one, the Lumerians on the mountain are a form of glass that is being melted by the flames into the oneness of the light that the mountain provides as a multidimensional portal between the earth and what? The earth and the all that is. Yes, the earth and the all that is. And of course, we understand there is no separation between earth and the all that is, but you must understand that on certain dimensional realms, things are occurring. So yes, everything is one and duality exists. And so in this one place, in this spot in the all that is, where the portal of Shasta is doing its work, the Lumerians are this glass, these rocks of glass that are being melted into the fire because their essence is necessary, is needed for the fire to have the quality of burn. It needs to be the light portal that it is. That may not be interesting to you at all. I think that might have just been for my knowing. All right. Is there anything we can do for you, Molly? Would you like to ask anything? Would you like to know anything? Do you have any curiosities at all?
I'm having the fire hose experience that I had listening to previous podcasts.
Okay, good.
And there's a little part of my mind that's going, what is going on here? What is this?
Yes, good. Yes. Okay, yes.
And most of me is going, I don't know, but I'm here for it. I'm receiving and I'll digest it all later. Or it's going in on some level that I don't need to know about.
Mm-hmm.
That I am the mountain. That was the thing that hit home. It's like, no wonder I feel like I've come home.
So when I ask you, do you have any questions? And then I listen, and then your being says, and I go, I have a visceral, I hear your question. The question is coming from your being. It's your being melting into the oneness that the crucible of this current moment is creating for you. In other words, your being, yourself, your ego, your separateness, any little the remnants of that, Allah, 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 are burning up in the fire of the light of Shasta. And so after this work today, you will know yourself as the oneness in a way you haven't before. You've always known yourself as having access to the oneness through yourself and your connection to your feelings, the seat of the self, the body, the earth, Sophia. Now we make you, we being the light, Allah, into the oneness, every molecule.
I feel myself actively participating in that letting go, in that release, in that
yes,
melting.
Allah, beautiful. Allah. And so we will continue. Allah, Allah, Allah. Every bit of egoic identification being burned like a perfectly pure crystalline rock or brick in a fire, the fire of the light of the source of all that is. It just melts and disintegrates into oneness. A little bit of work is occurring in the brainstem. Much work is occurring in the belly. Be prepared, Molly, to be seeing across time and space through your third eye. Be prepared to have your psychic knowing blown wide open, beyond intuition, vastly beyond the mind. Prepare to enter the ocean of infinite knowing. Our dream for you, our request of you would be that you would, if you so choose, practice listening to the even more subtle pieces of awareness you will begin to receive now. Subtle, 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 subtle. A tiny whisper at the back of the neck, a tiny sense. There is an image. You are walking through, for example, a mini mall, and you feel, oh, what's that? And you stop walking and you feel into your belly and you breathe and you become a portal through which some pain of the collective moves. So you must be with it, breathe through it, and birth it into light. You'll know just what to do and how. All you need to do is not dissociate away from it, which you would never do anyway. Hallelujah. Amen. Our point simply is we will be using you now. You came here today, Allah, Allah, to be initiated, if you will, into the next phase of your work as a light carrier, a light worker, okay? So you are the fire now of Shasta through every cell of your being and your body, such that when the collective says, please, Molly, ouch, you might be gardening, you might be on a horse, you might be in your car, you might be sleeping. You answer the call and say, yes, okay, I feel you. I breathe into this. I weep per se, maybe, or I laugh, or I cry, or I feel this light, this channel of light open through my crown into my body. Fine. Whatever it is, poof, I transmute it through my willingness to sit with it. This will come now through the diamond mind. I don't know what that means, but it will come through the diamond mind, which is to say, in less structured and less formal ways than you're used to this facilitation occurring. Okay, like we say, you're at a mini mall, you're at a Burger King, and you go, I need a minute in the bathroom. And you go to the bathroom and you breathe through a thing, and that thing was not yours, but it was the collective's, and you're doing it for them because you are a light worker. You've always been a light worker. Now you are the walking embodiment of the fire of the light of consciousness. No big deal. And so we ask you, we beg of you, please just move it through when it comes. It will not be hard for you, and you will love this work, and it will feel fulfilling. There is no downside. We wish only to give these words today for understanding, so you know what is occurring. Any questions?
Only thank you.
And thank you. From the seat of the soul of the universe, we say thank you. Namaste. The light that we are acknowledges the light that you are. And so we are reunified. And so was the whole purpose of your entire life. So was the whole purpose of your entire life met, completed, experienced, aligned, created, and signed, sealed, delivered. You did it. You've done what you came to do, and now you get to do it in an even more fluid, receptive, even less on the grid kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Flow. Amen. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sounds amazingly simple.
That happens a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
Not simplistic, but root.
Uncomplicated.
Simple root work.
It's so beautiful sitting in this light. I don't want to do anything else. So let me just ask. So what would you have us do now? Is there more for Molly here? No. Okay. Shall we close it up? Okay, I guess we're going to close it up. I'm like, can't we just live here forever? I don't want to live here forever. Okay. Okay, so, wow. thank you for having me here at all for this, God. The beings of light, every little aspect and individuated piece of the light that serves the light, that is the light. Thank you for this time with Molly and her being. Asking now that you return Molly to herself entirely, removing her from my field and our fields. And I ask that you return all of us to our complete human wholeness now, anyone listening, returning us to our complete human wholeness now. Thank you for this. I can't, thank you doesn't cover it. Just whatever the words are. Alhamdulillah, all praise to the one. Thank you. Namaste. I am you. I thank you. I love you. I'm grateful. Blessings and protection and peace for Molly as she carries forth. Clarity of action. Wisdom is what we ask for her as she already embodies. Amen. And so it is. The divine portal and the records for Molly are young brown are now closed. Amen. The divine portal and the records for Molly Young Brown are now closed. Amen. The divine portal and the records for Molly Young Brown are now closed. Amen. It's going to take me a moment to come out of that one. Molly, what a gift to have you here today. Thank you for bringing Mount Shasta to my office so I don't have to make a road trip.
I am feeling more at peace and relaxed than I felt for a very long time. And my body is heavy, not in the sense of weighty, but in the sense of just relaxed into the earth and into my chair and into,
Yeah, absolutely. I am just like, I am blown away by gratitude. I wish there was a shinier version of that word. I'm so grateful for getting to experience getting to experience you today and different people's alignment and these healings and this multidimensionality. It's so, thank you, God. Like, what a freaking gift. And I'm thinking at this moment of all the people in trauma and pain and suffering in the world. And I'm thinking, for you, beloveds, this is like, if you travel through your pain and do your work, this is the weird, amazing, beautiful shit you get to see and carry. Like, what if you could transcend time and space and become a flicker of light in the flame of Mount Shasta? No big deal. That all came from me facing my trauma. It didn't come from I'm special. It came from I just faced my trauma and found a spiritual path. That's all. Anybody can do that, people listening. Anybody can do that. This is what is available to all of us. And last little me on a soapbox proselytizing moment for today. This is the purpose of this transformative moment where everyone feels panicky and thinks they're dying and where some actual bodies are leaving the earth. This is the earth saying, and the soul of all that is saying, would you like to go higher or would you like to part ways now? It's okay. You can go, but you also could do higher if you like.
That doubles down some thoughts I was having earlier today, a conversation we were having about people protesting against the lockdown and how separate those people are from their own soul. Like, to be able to sit in a car and scream at a nurse while blockading a hospital because you want to go to Walmart, or not Walmart, to go to get your hair cut or whatever, which is what they're literally saying. And it's deeper than that, though. I'm not saying this to mock those people. I'm actually been thinking about the trauma and how being forced into that space, they are in resistance perhaps to exactly what you're talking about, and that it's doubled. The resistance is the fear of facing that in themselves. When you take away all the distractions or all the things, I need a thing, I got to get a thing. I need to feed the beast. So open up the economy. So I'm going to go scream at someone who's literally giving life. I feel like that is the fear of looking
and
at
Cassidy,
that possibility.
You can take that and metabolize it through that perception of the pain. You can transmute that through your own. It doesn't have to be just their pain; it can be yours too, and you can own it and transmute it. That's what I learned today. I can do that. You can do that. We can all do that.
I was thinking, am I going to have to say it or is Molly going to say it to him? Yeah.
What she just said. Yeah, it's all about the collective. Well, and that was the other part of that conversation, was about the collective versus the individual, and that it's not political, but in a sense, the sort of more left-leaning political organizational principles are collective in their view, and the more right-leaning ones are more individuated in their view. And we are being asked to bring the collectives, and that it doesn't just include people, but the collectives' needs, wants, dangers, fears into, like, that's what is important. So everything we do must be for the betterment of all, so we can do that within ourselves as well. I'm not sure if I made sense there.
Okay, let me say something simple, okay? If you like, Cassidy, you don't have to, but if you like any little nugget of frustration you feel towards those people protesting whoever is protesting whoever, any little bit of frustration you feel at them is for you to take into the crucible of light of your connection so that you become fully not upset about that. That is how you will transmute, as your mother says, their thing. People always think, how does me sitting at home doing my woo-woo spiritual shit help the earth? We should get out there and do stuff. We have to protest. We have to make it happen. We have to fight. We have to... we're not saying that's what you're saying, but this is how humans think. Like, oh, it's selfish of me to sit in my room and do spiritual shit when babies are being murdered. Actually, no. You metastasize or transmute the cancer of hate by doing it inside of you. It actually emanates out to them. You see? So this whole thing happens, these people fighting at the hospital, for you, Cassidy, specifically to go inside and to deal with your own reaction to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I do have to do that. I don't think that's the only purpose of that it exists for me to do change.
No, but that's what your work is in relation to that.
Right. That's what my work is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other people may have other work in relation to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be irresponsible of me to just sort of be like, yeah, those protesters, yeah, like to side with you kind of on it. I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to go, cool, we all have to go inside about that one too, don't we?
Yeah. No, I think you misunderstand perhaps what I was saying maybe about those protesters. It's not me going, fuck those people. That makes me angry. It's actually looking at the collective grief and fear that we are experiencing and how that there are manifestations of that collective grief and fear. Some is to push away, to not look at it. And I think that is, I'm opining that form of protest is a manifestation of fear of looking within and being with one's own actual fear and pain. So I will go out and instead of going in. And so that I'm in a sense, I'm just recognizing, in fact, exactly what you said, that I also wish that they would, but I cannot force someone to look within. So, but I can look within, I can get with my source and myself.
And that matters.
And transmute. And that
affects the collective.
Right.
Rock and roll, everybody. Deep.
Yeah.
And the spiritual work that you're referring to, Katie, that we need to do is not for me, and it may be for someone else, but for this incarnation is not about getting away from that fear and pain through some kind of spiritual transcendence, but working with it and holding it in the light.
Mm-hmm. What happens to it for you when you hold it in the light and get with it?
Well, for a little while, it gets more real. It gets more intense. It's more painful.
Yep. Right. And then what?
I don't know. There's this sort of release that happens, and I don't make it happen. It happens.
That's right. So in a sense, it does go away, but the going away only occurs through the going in.
That's right. And it doesn't go away. It just transforms. It
integrates into the all that is.
Yes. It stops being separate. I wish everyone can have had the experience of childbirth with appropriate preparation so that it could be experienced as a whole process and not an awful thing you have to go through.
What do you mean?
Well, because childbirth is the experience of intense pain that is giving birth to a baby, a new being. And it is so worth it.
Wow.
It is so worth it. And if you have appropriate preparation, so you're not terrified and, it's a beautiful thing, then you can work with it. And yeah, it hurts, but okay, I'll just breathe because I've been taught how to breathe and I know how to do that. You do it all the time when you're channeling or consulting the records or whatever. You're doing childbirth breathing.
I know. Well, what's funny is as soon as you said that, when I said, what do you mean? And then you said something else after that, I got in my pelvis the feeling of a birth pang. And then I felt it's almost like a heat. It's like, and then on the other side of it is,
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm so glad you said that. I mean, right? I mean, that's what the doulas are for, and the people having babies in their living room in a bucket of rainwater or whatever. It's so we can experience that you said. Wow, what a freaking amazing thing that we are so dissociated away from. Let's make all the pain go away and take a drug, which is understandable, but let's not. Oh God, childbirth, what a thing. I'm so grateful I won't be doing that this lifetime.
You do your own version of it quite often.
Yeah, I think so. You don't need to do it on a physical level.
Right. Well, Cass, did you have anything you wanted to ask your mom or say more?
Yeah, I really would like to hear from you, Cass.
I feel like what I witnessed today was you were in a sense, that's not the right word, initiated into like an angelic force, like an angelic, I don't want to say army because I hate the military language, but like you were initiated into a spirit army.
Company.
Into a cadre of a community. But it was like, sorry, you're part of us. Here it is. Not sorry, but just like the next step. Like they've been going, yeah, Molly, you're doing the stuff. You don't necessarily need to be a part of the team, but you know what? You're on the team now.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I saw. Language is so friggin' limiting because it's always like this is a whole other conversation, but language is all metaphorical. And I think we need to realize that literally
it's all metaphorical.
Every single word I'm saying right now is metaphorical because it's a word that's standing in for an idea
or an experience.
What I want to know is how was it for you to witness this happening to your mother?
Me too.
I kind of went on a very similar journey, at least perceptually, intellectually, as Molly, I think, from what I gleaned, which was like, oh yeah, that lands. And then like, I don't know what that, no. Now, how do I use that? That's a lot of it. Okay. And there was a lot of that. And then it kind of also recrystallized at a certain point into like, okay, here's the thing. Here's what's going to probably happen to you. Here's what you can be prepared for. And it's cool. Just relax. You've done your work. And so like, it was great. I was also meta aware of like, this is not how the podcast usually goes. It goes however it goes. This is not what we set out to do just an induction of Molly into the army of angels. We set out to maybe ask a question, but that was not what was called for today. And I love that.
Yeah.
And how was it for you in your body while she was experiencing a fire hose of some sort?
I don't know if it was spiritual or just literally my position, which is why I changed my position after a while, as my neck really started to hurt. And then you said something about brainstem. There's some work at the brainstem. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's still really tight right now. So that may have been a subsidiary to the experience. So I'm trying to just sit with that and be aware that maybe my struggle, I can't analyze it, but my struggle to conceptually grasp what was happening manifested in a clenched brainstem. that's a possibility. I'm just, it was really fun also to just watch the process wash over Molly. And then, because as our listeners know, we are on Zoom, so we can see each other right now, and watch it sort of literally go from a little bit of like, okay, and I could see this in your body and then melt into a space of, oh, and then you got heavier. And I watched it in your face. I watched it in your shoulders. I watched it just in your sort of spirit. And I was perceiving that shift of, and it was the same struggle I was having from accepting, but still struggling to landing and melting. That's what I saw. And I love that. I have so much, as we all know, I talk about them all the time on the podcast. I have such a deep, deep, intense love for my parents that, getting to experience something deep and powerful for one of them was like, all right, yes. was soul joying. And I agree, Molly, you get to be a fucking champagne glass. You have done so much work for so long. You don't have to stop, but you can. You've done it. And I was so glad that you got told that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It made me laugh, which is champagne-y. Laughter is champagne-y. It's bubbly. And yeah, it was like, because one of the questions I said to you yesterday, Cass, that I might ask would be, how can I do my work and not be so damn busy?
Well, there you go. I think they answered it. You're doing the work. That's it.
Something that comes to is also like, if you're so moved, if you want to listen to that section again, there will be pieces.
I will. You could believe it.
Yeah,
you could believe it. Yeah.
That'll be great.
And I'll be sharing it with Jim too, which will be interesting.
Oh, that's cool. It's such an honor to sit with a mother-son team that has such healthy, connective tissue between it and love flowing. Thank you both. Thank you, Molly, for loving a child into a grown up so well. And Cass, for staying connected to your mom and just letting me be a part of that for a moment. It's very beautiful.
I just have to say that we had, when Cass, when you were young, you remember this as well as I, sort of every morning we would have a fight. It wasn't a fight like an argument. It would.
We were at it.
We'd get with each other every single morning.
This is around the ages of 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. And it felt like we were the same person fighting there was some way in which we were so alike that we had to fight. I don't know.
Individuate ourselves from this enmeshment. Yeah, but tell the rest of the story, which is we then went to therapy, and after 2 sessions, they identified that we were probably both just hypoglycemic and that we should just eat before we actually tried to talk.
Oh, that's so funny.
And it did. It solved it. We were like, oh, good. We're good. Just don't talk until you've had breakfast. That's fine.
So funny. That's like a friend of mine talks about how he and his wife, they're married 40 years or something. And he talks about, we almost got divorced at one point and we went to therapy. And when the therapist finally drilled down into when is the time of day you tend to be fighting? And it was always right after dinner. They realized that finally the therapist, he said, we stopped going to therapy the day after the therapist said this sentence: I think you guys need to buy a dishwasher. And they bought a dishwasher, never fought again. They'd married for 45 years. They were couldn't figure out, you don't care about me because you don't put the dishes in and I do the dishes every night. And then they got a dishwasher and didn't have a problem.
Well, they still had to load the dishwasher.
Sometimes the deep spiritual truths that's still deeply spiritual in a weird way. It's just what practical. If you look to the center of it? What if you looked to the heart of it? What if you looked to the practical, to the simple part of it? And you can email us at allanswerspod@gmail.com if you want to either come on the show or have us ask a question with you on the air or not. allanswerspod@gmail.com. And yes, subscribe, all those things. Sounds awesome, and all the answers.
And you can also find me at mollyyoungbrown.com.
And the Work That Reconnects, you can find out just by Googling.
theworkthatreconnects.org. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
All of the answers, say what? All of the answers, yeah, all the answers.
listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you.